Coming this month from This is Chicago, it's summer and we're going outside. June's bonus episodes are coming to you from the lake, the river, the park, and an alley. We'll see you there and we'll get back inside next month.
This is Chicago.
Was working not just on breeding systems, but the evolution of sex. I realized that at some point that my idea about the evolution of sex was much different than the majority opinion. So I was having trouble getting published. But I realized that even if I was right, it would enable me to become famous or something, well-known or whatever. But it really didn't make any difference to evolution. So that realization sort of really knocked the wind out of my sails in terms of my previous work. You know, the kind of questions I would ask is, how many scientific papers is extending the life of the great tree frog 200 years in Cook County worth? And, you know, that's the kind of question that doesn't make any sense, and there's no way to really answer it, but it can be asked, and I felt that I could do things that would extend the life of the great tree frog's presence in Cook County for a time, and it would seem more important to me than writing more papers. So, you know, I got a degree in zoology, but when I got into conservation, I realized the important thing is plants. From an engineering point of view, for sure, it's the important thing. It's what you can actually do something about. The amount of money and stuff that it costs to do a teeny little bit on something like the condors is, you could have rebuilt the whole preserve in California with the money they spent on some of the animals. So there's been some successes and stuff, but it's extremely expensive. It's not a good, effective way, and it helps one species. I don't have any sort of special organisms. I tend to think communities are crucial. I'd had an interest in conservation a long time, and in 1983, the Audubon Society sent out a solicitation for volunteer stewards of Illinois Nature Preserve. I decided to volunteer. It wasn't some new interest to me, but it was not something I had ever thought you could do anything about. That was really what the Volunteer Stewardship Network did, was it taught people that they could do something. There are many nice natural areas here. Eggers Woods, Powderhorn, Sand Ridge, Green Lake. In addition, Commonwealth Edison right-of-ways are often very fine natural areas and are protected as natural areas. I had been to them. I collected in Wolf Lake when I was working back with genetics of protozoa. In Wolf Lake, I found 4 new species. And so I was able to name it Tetrahymena heguishii. And it's basically impossible to really study these animals in the field. I mean, Paramecium are just barely visible with the naked eye. Tetrahymena are even smaller, you can't even see them. And so you can't really know very well what they're doing out there in the field. But I did spend a lot of time outside in nature. Biology is a subject of balance, so there's things like native populations can get out of control or overabundant or underabundant as well. So people can enhance underabundant species by producing seed in the garden, and people can control overabundant species by, shooting them, trapping them. Deer control, raccoon control of or limiting, the abundance of deer is important for the plant community, and that means the insect community. Raccoons are probably a major source of mortality for birds and also turtles. So having biologists make decisions about reducing the abundance of some species and increasing the abundance of other species will give us better balance. By and large, the people here are not interested in nature, but that's not very distinctive. I mean, there's a few people, tree lovers and stuff, they plant trees. They don't think about the whole system very much, whether the tree's a native tree or not. The populations of invasive species were occupying much of the forest preserves and sometimes planted by the forest preserves. The forest preserves then finally sort of caught on and enjoying the movement to try and restore native populations. So they're removing a lot of invasive species, honeysuckle and barberry, buckthorn. Those were woody species that were taking over preserves. Very few animals utilize that type of habitat. You know, the animals don't like crushing through the brush any more than people. So they're getting rid of that in a lot of places. They have a goal of half their acreage, 30,000 acres, I think. And they're working, they're getting there. I mean, things have changed. I've gone from being rather depressed to things are getting better. I mean, who knows? I participated in the actions of the volunteers, and that was satisfying to me. But I did it for the animals and the plants. That my satisfaction is not from getting some award from some group or something, but in the reality of the plants and animals. And in fact, I mean, I did ultimately get a big reward because when I started the Cook County Forest Preserve, they weren't doing anything to enhance it. They then passed this next century conservation plan for the 100th anniversary of the forest preserves, and they're really doing it a lot now.
It's summer, so we're staying outside for 2 more weeks. Next, we head to the lake, where life finds a way.
I didn't know how, nearly impossible the odds of a nest success were.
From Superphonic Studios, this is Chicago. Listen every Sunday.